Good evening, everyone. I am Vancouver Shillai, President of the SYM Shillong Province, and I welcome you to the fifth day of the Symposium on Salesian Youth Ministry for the 21st Century, Prospects and Challenges. This has been organized by the Salesian Province of Shillong in collaboration with the Youth Pastoral Ministry, the SYM, and St. Anthony's College. We have had a very knowledgeable week with the many sessions and talks from different resource persons within the Salesian family. And I am sure that now we are more enriched as followers of Don Bosco. And again, today I'm sure will be no less inspiring. In the panel today, we have Father A.L. Jose, Program Director, Father Anthony Karkongor, Youth Delegate, our resource persons for the day, Father Jerry Thomas, Director of Don Bosco Institute for MSW, and Father Gilbert Chundal, Director of Nitika Kolkata and Delegate for Education to Faith. We also have with us Mr. Ivor Shabam, Organizing Secretary of the SYM, who will be moderating a session today. The technical team is taken care by the team at St. Anthony's College. Before we begin, we shall ask the Almighty for His blessings as we embark on yet another spiritual and intellectual journey. I call upon Mr. Ivor Shabam to lead us in prayer and to also begin the introduction to the first session thereafter. Over to you, Ivor.
Thank you, Van. Let's start with the prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, thank you for being there for us day in and day out. Lord, help us to keep holding on and pressing forward. We need you. Lord, we come with open arms and ask you to fill as you only can. Be with us this evening on the fifth day of our program on Salesian Youth Ministry for the 21st century. Be with our resource persons, moderators, and all participants that we may be enabled by your powerful protection to say and do the right things for your greater glory. Be with us all and our families. Fill us with your grace, love, and mercy all days of our lives. We make this prayer to Christ our Lord. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit,
as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
May our hope of Christian.
Pray for us.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good evening, everyone. Ivor Shabam, and I am the organizing secretary of the Salesian Youth Movement. It is a moment of extreme pleasure to welcome all of you who are present here in today's session. On behalf of the Salesian Youth Movement, I especially welcome and offer my regards to Father Jerry Thomas, SDB, who is a speaker for today's first session. Father Thomas at present is the director of the Don Bosco Institute, Jorhat, and he has also served as the director of the NERYC, that is the Northeastern Regional Youth Commission. The schedule of the session will focus on the topic of unconditional setting today. I wish this session enlightens us all and provides us with approaches to deal with the problems of tomorrow. So now I request Father Thomas to please take over. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's a privilege to be here on this platform to talk about youth ministry, and that too in unconventional settings. As you will see on the screen, it's a reflection from the field with contributions from many people, and especially from a group of young people in the Northeast who have had different length of experience with Salesians and the Don Bosco institutions and the youth ministry of all religions, some who have had just professional or work-related association. Then I There are some Salesians who contributed to this reflection. There is Father MC George and his network, Father Adolfo Furtado and his network, Brother Sonny Joseph, Father Pierre John, and their network, and Indrajit Sinha, who draws conversations. The slides that you see are his creation. And of course, Don Bosco, the down-to-earth saint of youth, the reason why we are here today. This set of reflections is not a final say on unconventional settings. It is actually a trigger for further reflection and action, planning and action later. So having said that, I want to start with the inspiration for these reflections. Where does this inspiration come from? It comes from the appeals from youth who were present at the General Chapter 28 in 2020. These young people from across the world, they were present at the General Assembly, and during the interaction, something that caught my attention was this: you need to love crazy and do crazy things. Love like Don Bosco. Your world will be dark without us. They are not saying our world will be dark without you. They are saying your world will be dark without us. Therefore, love like Don Bosco. Another appeal was, come and live with us where we are to know us. Do not wait for us to find you and then come to you. In these appeals from the youth, challenge us to break free of our self-imposed boundaries and limits and be possessed by the recklessness of Don Bosco when it was for the good of the young. It calls us to reflect on where we need to be and what we need to do to make a difference in the lives of young people. It challenges us to move beyond. Which is this? What is the world that the young people are inheriting from us? Today, half of the population of India is below 29 years. And looking at the age dependency ratio, the next 20 years would be critical in designing the future of our country, of our young people, of our population, and of course, with the biggest population, the second biggest population, also of the planet. The younger half are inheritors of resources and tools for development that are strange to the older generation. They could even never dream of such kind of tools of technology, media, and access to information. It promises a great future. However, there are also challenges, tremendous challenges. Inequality in this country has grown like never before. We are told that the top 1% population of this country own 21% of the wealth generated in this country in 2019. And the bottom 50% own merely 1% of this wealth. Add into this graphics the dynamics of caste, community, gender, religion, geography, education, inequalities. It is anyone's guess, therefore, what percent of the below 29-year-olds will have access to the resources and the tools that will drive us to the future to a better future, to catapult them to a brighter future. The scary scenes of climate change related disasters are very visible across the world. It is predicted to adversely impact more countries with poorer populations, and it casts a real pall of gloom on this future that we are talking about. Primarily also because of the careless approach of governments and world leaders and policymakers. The worst is yet to come, with global temperatures rising and the pollutions going on unbridled. It is said that 700,000 people in India died due to air pollution, besides those who died of extreme temperatures. In spite of the many environmental movements, the exploitation of nature and the pollution of the environment still goes on in the name of development. Bright future? It's hard to say. The pandemic has caused enough havoc, has caused enough deaths, and yet humankind has not paused to look at what is important in life and has not stopped killing each other in the many war zones and conflict zones across the globe. Interestingly or scarily, the scenarios of wars are becoming profit-making industries handled by non-state actors. And therefore, profit-making industry, wars become reasons to make profits. So the reasons for war have to be fabricated. New war zones have to be discovered. Together with it, there is also very fast privatization of the delivery of basic services like health, education, transport and communication, food, etc., being handed over to corporates for profit. Scary details of this planned, abusive, and downright dehumanizing development can be found in Naomi Klein's The Shock Doctrine. The poor will have no access anymore to these services. Any wonder then that suicide is beautiful? This statement was made by one young person after the death that got so much of publicity in India of this actor. So suicide today is endorsed and acted on by celebrities and youth icons. Globally, there is a suicide every 40 seconds. There has been a 65% increase in suicides from the 1970s, and it is the leading cause for death among the younger generation, though it is the older generation that more of older generation that die by suicide. It is also catching up in India, in the Northeast. Tripura and Sikkim first and then Tripura, has suicide rates high above the national average in 2017. In all this, there is also a silver lining. The silver lining is that young people across the globe are coming forward to thwart forces that want to steal their future from them. Movements for democracy, for human rights, for dignified living, for climate justice, for peace and harmony. They are amazingly innovative in their forms of protest and engagement, using art, music, theater, technology, social media, and their solidarity across traditional divisions and artificial barriers is spontaneous. In this scenario, when we are looking towards moving to the future and looking at unconventional means, unconventional youth ministry and reach beyond those who come to us in these institutions. So what are the avenues for Salesian youth ministry? To whom and to what should Salesians pay attention to be true to their calling and charism? A note on the slides. A friend of mine was drawing these slides. Unfortunately, his grandfather died halfway through, so he could not complete. I didn't want to do a shoddy job, so I'm keeping this slide for the rest of the presentation. I hope you will understand. Ideally, our primary focus should be the youth from the bottom 50% who own the 1% of the wealth generated in our country. Those on the outer periphery of the social hierarchy. Those who do not dare to dream of a better future, do not see how they can meet their basic needs, do not have access to the services, facilities, opportunities that their counterparts take for granted. Those most vulnerable to manipulation, exploitation, those whose existence is only for making the lives of others more comfortable and convenient, whose existence will be noticed only when they are absent, or whose existence the decent society does not want to acknowledge, or is tolerated with derision, whose presence is a blot on our smart cities and progressive schemes, yet whose blood and sweat are squeezed out to oil the wheels of progress. Well, that is the ideal group. But we can all take consolation in the fact that the ideals are seldom reached. But we cannot be excused for not striving towards the ideal. After all, that is what we have professed. There are particular groups that our ministry needs to include. Those who have never been to a school or have dropped out due to poverty or lack of support from parents, those on the wrong side of the digital divide, especially today. Dropouts for whatever reason, most often because schools categorize students into smart, intelligent, and dumb and stupid, not realizing that it is the failure of the system that brands a kid stupid. Refer to Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence, or listen to Ken Robinson saying, our schools educate our kids out of creativity. Our own schools produce dropouts, sadly. We also look for smart ones, whatever that smart is. Young people in conflict with the law and in prison as pawns in the great power play of politics, ideology, business interests. We have Father Stan Swami, who has brought this group into our consciousness. Also those in prison for crimes committed, often, semi-often, especially during this pandemic, and also because of HIV, extreme poverty, natural disasters. Those with serious health issues, with stigma attached, HIV, addicted to drugs and alcohol, those with suicidal tendencies. We also need to add sex addiction, which is not recognized or spoken about. So also screen and digital addiction. The other day, I think it was on the 3rd, the BBC reported that the Chinese government has declared online gaming as electronic addiction and calling it a spiritual opium. These need professional assistance. Youth with mental health issues that often go uncared for but are stigmatized and discriminated against all the same. Those vulnerable to trafficking and sexual exploitation, and those who need rehabilitation after this. And it's also good for us to know that globally, the trafficking is a $150 billion profit-making industry annually. 66% of these profits come from trafficking for sex, which is more lucrative. Commercial sex workers, poverty and coercion force many into this profession. Those who are sexually, physically, emotionally abused, rape victims, teenage mothers, those who are forced to undergo abortions, forced to abandon their babies, the LGBT community, homeless families on the street with children and adolescent children, and especially girls. Yesterday, there was a small video on a family on the street. At the center of this family was this girl who has been admitted to a college. And she says how they can't sleep. At night when they sleep, this is something that I never thought of is possible. At night when she and her mother tries to sleep, there are strangers who try to come and sleep with them. So they have to keep awake or keep a stick with them to chase away these people. And she says, I can't go to college because I do not know how to talk to people who are rich. And these institutions scare me. Those from dysfunctional families and abusive families, the kids live as orphans with their parents, the consequences of which forefront when they reach adolescence. Those who are physically and mentally challenged, those with special needs who need also specialized care, victims of conflict, internally displaced people, we have quite a number of them in the Northeast, those who are forced to migrate for livelihoods, kids forced into dangerous employment and exploitative conditions, unemployed youth. Day before yesterday, there was a report in the Sentinel that 690 people have committed suicide in Assam because of unemployment between 2016 and 2019. The pandemic, they fear, have doubled this number. All these groups are vulnerable to exploitation of all kinds by the mere fact that they belong on the lowest rungs of the social hierarchy. Then there are other groups that battle with their own vulnerabilities, educated unemployed, young single parents, young couples, those that marry outside their community and religion, brilliant, creative young people who have no support to pursue their dreams, the backbenchers, most often very talented, innovative, intuitive, risk takers, unconventional, but not academically ambitious. Hence, looked at with admiration mixed with apprehension, bordering on ridicule. Seekers of truth, explorers, wanderers, high achievers and smart professionals, but stressed and worn out, feeling empty and hollow. Highly popular people, and yet lonely. Those with low self-esteem and confidence, those whose growth trajectory is hampered by the environment in which they grew up and by events that may have traumatized them, spiritual pilgrims. Then there are groups that can facilitate and expand our reach. Principals of schools and colleges, teachers, student unions, trade unions, tribe and community bodies, parents, mothers associations, women groups who can facilitate our work. Institutions of governance, democratic institutions at all levels, law enforcement agencies, youth volunteers, youth organizations, youth-led organizations, church groups, church leaders, financial institutions, social entrepreneurs, farmer groups, business leaders, innovators in the field of youth development. We have quite a number of them in this country, doing fantastic work, very innovative. There is this Mutiny, the youth collective from Delhi, who have actually developed a fantastic framework called the Fifth Space for working with the young people, who connect the young people with themselves by interacting and being engaged in community. Professionals in education, health, ecology, law, sports, arts, theater, music, digital technology, and whoever is passionate about youth. So these groups to whom we should reach out and whose help we can get, what is the need that most young people say is needed at this time? Now, this is coming straight from the young people themselves. They need spaces that invite and nurture and kindle hope. Their request is for education that engineers hope. Hope is what we need, and education is a powerful weapon. Education in a trusting environment. Don Bosco spoke about that. Education happens in the atmosphere of a home. Because we want to live and thrive, Most problems are because of the loss of hope and the dearth of individuals to listen and kindle that hope, even while there are crowds to judge and condemn. Erickson's psychosocial theory speaks about the virtue of hope and the generation of this hope in the crisis of trust and mistrust, when the caregivers create this trust, when they meet the needs of the child. And at adolescence, it comes to the forefront again. Not many trust us, especially if our background is not decent. If our background is not decent, then we are judged as bad characters. We need a process in which young people are not judged for their character and performance, but are encountered in their environment and accepted and accompanied in their growth, where they can find themselves, where they are mentored in the responsible use of freedom. Salesians should not lose sight of and touch with the inherent goodness in young people. Don Bosco said there are no bad boys. Unfortunately, institutional approach focused on structures and performance leads many young people to dropping out of life and society. Hence, we need to create spaces within our institutions and in informal settings where young people are welcome as they are, uncouth or otherwise, where they can explore, have the freedom to ask questions, express what they feel, have the confidence to fall, and are gradually accompanied with love and patience to what they can be. A space that they will return to whenever they need to boost their spirits, irrespective of the change of the Salesian personnel and collaborators who mentor that space over the years. Spaces that satiate the spiritual hunger of youth, which was so very evident during this pandemic, through spiritual guidance and life-transforming spiritual experiences and rituals that they can connect with, should be integrated into this space. Spaces that nurture and mentor active citizens with personal integrity and social responsibility. This implies that we recruit as leaders and collaborators in our work in education, training, administration, management of programs. They should be oriented in the educative culture of Don Bosco and be committed to that culture. We are taking for granted that Salesians themselves are committed to it. A brilliant teacher, trainer, expert who humiliates a young person has no place in our campuses, not to speak of in our congregation. Programs and processes beyond academics and curriculum. Together with personal growth, a young person needs to find his place in society through employment, livelihood, marriage, family, a vocation, and be an active and responsible citizens. Engagements that continue over the years. Programs to prevent dropouts for failed students, those who have never been to schools, bridge schools, study facilities and assistance to students who have no such facilities at home and where parents cannot help. Leadership building. We need an institute for excellence in leadership, choosing potential kids from class 8 onwards, not the academically bright ones, but the smart ones, as Howard Gardner would say, in mixed groups with holiday programs, year-long accompaniment, and follow-up beyond the school hours and school years into their future. Finishing schools for life competencies and skills for the 21st century, as they call it. Sports academies, professionally managed, fun, physical fitness, social values, character molding, career option. Sports academies can provide all these. Counseling services. Today, the technology has given us the possibilities of online platforms, helplines, group and individual guidance for youth anywhere, career and study guidance, education on sexuality and sexual relationship, an area that is mostly shied away from and which causes a lot of confusion and moral and spiritual dilemma for young people and creates a lot of guilt and anxiety. group experiences, clubs and groups based on the interest of children and youth in formal institutions and in communities so that everyone is included. Father Thomas Kalapura just came into this office when he was the principal of Don Bosco Dibrugarh. There were about 16 clubs based on the interest of young people. Music, art, sculpting, toys, crafts, ecology, name it, and you can have clubs around it. Create a pioneers club. Many students are into niche fields. They create very great interest in some fields. Why not help them to pioneer innovations and records to be created by them? Why not? Don Bosco was a pioneer. Create a fitness movement for them. Fitness has become a major concern today, and the pandemic has added to that concern. Running, jogging, gyms, and it is also a great formative space. Programs to connect with and affirm the identity and cultural identity and rootedness of our young people, leading at the same time to cherish the diversity of cultures, history, folklore, songs, dances, rituals, and practices and their meaning, values, beliefs, democracy and participation, conflict resolution skills, changes, critiquing the changes over time. Our schools and colleges have ample time to teach things from across the world, but hardly any space to relate with the experiences of our young people in their communities. Peace building and harmonious living initiatives by young people from across cultures, communities, geographies, religions, thwarting the efforts by vested interests to keep conflicts going for political power or economic benefits. I had the opportunity to interview one of the previous chief ministers of Assam during my research on the United Liberation Front of Assam. And I asked him, why is that there is no solution? He says, no party is interested in finding a solution. So there are people who want to keep conflicts going, teaching them the skills needed to create youth movement for peace, strong enough to stand by the truth and not to be swayed by personal community affiliations or manipulated by money and offers of personal advantages. Training of principals and teachers of schools in the area. Principals Club, Teachers Club for socializing, mutual learning and assistance, influencing policy decisions. These are some of the things that we can do. I would also think of areas. So far, in the 100 years of our existence, we have focused a lot on educational empowerment. Now, I think we need to move on together with educational empowerment into the area of financial empowerment, which is a logical step for wealth generation and wealth distribution. Promotion of entrepreneurship to help the youth become designers of the destiny of the region, blessed so abundantly by nature, and in the preservation, and in the preservation and the benefits of which they have the maximum stake, to make life financially, socially, and environmentally viable in this region, to prevent our communities from becoming empty of young people who migrate for jobs somewhere else, where wealth is generated in the region and circulates in the region, where the indigenous skills can be mentored into wealth-generating projects, where avenues are opened to showcase the beauty and talents of the region on the financially profitable global platforms, where our young people can prove that entrepreneurship is not the exclusive prerogative of some special groups. Hence, introduce them to the world of innovation, mind mapping, design thinking, art, colors, storytelling, building prototypes and models, tools of work, right from the time they are intensely curious about things, are okay with mistakes, not paralyzed by the fear of failure, excited about creating something on their own. Introduce them to the healthy and effective use of technology. Back to the land and the culture that connects one with nature, that is at the core of our existence. Formal schooling sells the dream of a job with economic security. In the process, the child is forced to disconnect from the land that his family has, the skill sets and the values, traditions and practices, relationships and interactions, and the cultural ethos that have helped his or her community survive for centuries. There was this boy in one of these villages near Sonapur, belonging to the Amri Karbi community. One of our partners there sent us a video where this boy, during the pandemic, is making bamboo baskets. He says, I will sell them and make money to bring electricity to my village. He was class 6. I said, this guy's ambition is fantastic. Then this partner said that unfortunately, he and his family had to migrate to the nearest town to send him to school, which means he will learn nothing of these skills again once he gets a job. And what will he become with the dynamics of tribe and caste and community that is present? He may end up as a clerk somewhere after having spent so much of money on his education. And he is bossed around by somebody who is equally frustrated like him. Why can't we pioneer a model of education? One of my teachers, Joseph Kawa, was telling me during the pandemic, all these kids are not going to school. They are playing around in the field, paddy field, climbing trees, catching birds. I said, why can't that become their school and their class? Can't we pioneer an education system that involves children, parents, community leaders, and teacher facilitators that does not remove kids and youth from that which sustains our life on the planet, our common home, as Pope Francis calls it. And in the process, they become masters of their own destiny as agripreneurs, farmpreneurs, engaging in all land-based production, processing, branding, marketing. Ensuring land ownership documentation, keeping in mind the legislations of the state and the country. Inspire, motivate, and support young people enamored and inspired by Don Bosco to become social entrepreneurs in areas that they are passionate about, channelizing their anger and pain at things that have gone wrong in their own life or in the life of their peers, and turning those experiences into life-giving action. Don Bosco was one of them. His father died at the age of 2. Today, he is the father of youth. Young dreams should not be allowed to die for want of support and know-how and fear of ridicule and criticism, especially by family and the close community. Promote, mentor, facilitate entrepreneur networks and trade-specific groups for cross-learning and for inspiring more young people. Employment portal. And today, what is trending is the gig economy, where young people take on many part-time jobs, temporary jobs. We need to train our young people for such kind of employment because long-term employments are not coming so very easily now. So open up the world of gig economy for young people, train them, identify and train for new areas of employment in the region. Because many of our skill building programs for employment outside the region. So music, art, sports, tourism, hospitality, culture, handicrafts, travel, internet, social media, translation and interpretation, catering, event management, fundraising, crowdfunding, counseling, online marketing, courier, graphic designing, videography, this list can go on. This brings out and taps the power of the marginalized youth. Interventions for a more humane world. Help translate youth idealism for a just and humane world into realistic action. Inspire, motivate, train, and handhold potential young people to engage with issues of human rights, cultural rights, and the rights to a life and dignity for all, especially on behalf of the poor and the marginalized. Climate change and the related climate justice issues need urgent attention. Our Rector Major has been calling us to consider climate action and environmental action as part of youth ministry. And this is something that we cannot ignore because we can't stand by and watch the future of our young people destroyed because of climate-related issues. We are seeing the consequences of it today. Political engagement, informed conversations around political issues and the Constitution of India and its foundational values among ourselves and with the young people. India is moving towards the 75th anniversary of the Indian Constitution. And considering the political and ideological trends of the moment, we need urgent action to protect and strengthen the foundations of our country. There are organizations that are exclusively into making the Constitution a lived reality among communities and groups as a tool to secure their rights. The Constitution is the foundation for democratic action for human rights and dignity. How about an institute for social and political leadership? Engagement with and training of young panchayat leaders and our representatives. Preparing young people to assist parliamentarians with research, information, and data from the field and to monitor the progress of their constituencies. Promote and facilitate youth and children parliaments. Powerful means to secure the rights and train them in active citizenship. Other services. Mama Margaret opened her kitchen to kids who wanted a little bit of food, a place to sleep, and a little bit of love. I think we need to create these youth oases, the runaway spaces within our communities for young people who want to run away from stressful and debilitating environments, experiences, and want to find themselves again, to relax, to reflect, to pray, to sleep without a care, to converse with a trustworthy and caring solution. There is an organization, a friend of ours in Ahmedabad, organization is called Suhag. He has got a space for young people. There is a boy who comes there, and he comes there just to sleep. He says, at home, I can't sleep because of the situation. And he sleeps. And he participates in activities. When he has finished, he's sleeping. A couple of rooms, a peaceful and delightful corner of our houses, always available to young people who just want to recoup themselves. No charges, always welcoming, always available. The youth should know there is someone who cares for me. Design living experience for young people with Salesian from all faiths. There is a lot of list. Volunteering and community engagement opportunities to create young people who are socially conscious and socially active, challenging them to find innovative solutions to problems that trouble people and communities. Let every Don Bosco student after class 8 begin to engage in the communities and become leaders. Active and inspiring presence on the digital media. You had a whole session on it. Investing in holistic fun time for youth of all categories, music, theater, art, sports, trekking. Fun and play are important elements to healthy growth. Conventions, camps, travels that involve close interaction among young people, helping them to know each other and find their life partners. Marriage is a big issue. Consultancy service and online platform, helping young people in need of very many kind of services. Prevention of addiction, train peer educators and peer support groups for young people who will work with addicts confidentially. Put in place a network of trustworthy and daring young people in communities to track the movements of drug peddlers, drug sellers, pimps, and do anything that lures young people into danger. Build a secure digital platform to coordinate the data and plan strategies. We need to multiply ourselves, share our charism boldly with the young people and invite them to become youth animators and youth facilitators like Don Bosco. A research on youth, a data bank on youth in the Northeast that we can become a source for policymakers, a reference for policymakers, for governments, and for anyone. To conclude, all this is nice, but we also need to do something with ourselves if we have to do all this. And the first one is to listen to the Rector Major when he says, youth are the burning bush for the Salesians. This metaphor implies that we approach them with reverence, listen to them with humility, remove our sandals, Moses was told by God, become co-conspirators with them in their liberation from all that holds them in slavery. Shift from working for youth to working with youth. Co-create their journey of redemption. The youth will survive without us, but we will not exist without them. We are here because of them. For you I work, for you I study, for you. Let them become the focal point of all we do. Purge ourselves of all traces of adultism. Move from locks and knocks to open, welcoming attitude and availability in the nurturing, empowering spaces. Move from sternness to serenity, from rules to conversations, from regimental protocols to personal warmth. Youth are not perfect, nor are we. Embrace our own vulnerability, which will make us more empathetic and caring. Do not walk away from our personal histories to a world of a perfect world of make-believe, even if it appears in the garb of Salesian religious life. From working in silos to working in networks and partnerships, interprovincial ventures that can serve the youth across the region in a lot of areas. Those who move into unconventional youth ministry should be not seen as exceptions to the normal and grudgingly tolerated, but they and their work need to be collectively owned and celebrated. Though it would be an individual who initiates an unconventional ministry, it should not remain the joyful burden of that person, but ought to be accepted as a valid ministry of the congregation, which does not lose steam when the pioneer moves on or is moved. During formation, tap into the anger and anguish of the young Salesian when they encounter the harsh reality that young people live with, and not only help them to exalt, I thank thee, Lord, that I am not like them, and for shielding me from the cruelties and struggles of daily living. We know what Jesus said of a person who prayed like that once upon a time. Help our young people, young Salesians, connect with their anger and pain and channel that energy into designing meaningful ministry, leaving sufficient room for failure and supporting them to rise again. Father Cafaso did this to young Don Bosco. Integrate into this deep reflection on the experience and feelings that accompany, guided by the rereading of the Gospels and the story of Don Bosco in the context of today. Salesians need exposure to the larger world to dream big. We need to train ourselves to deal with the world outside, with the leaders outside, and with the issues outside. We need to train ourselves to be daring, to take risks, to love without measure, to be reckless when it is a question of the good of the young. And let us walk, not by sight, but by faith. This is a motto of a very young entrepreneur in her 20s from Mizoram, Rebecca by name, who is working with the young people. And she says, if it is not for my faith, I will not succeed. Because I never know what happens each day. It is by faith that I move, not by sight. Let us become Salesians who walk not by sight, but by faith, believing in the God who created us, believing in the God, in the young people we accompany, and believing in our own charism and the legacy handed us by Don Bosco. Thank you. Ooh, sorry, I exceeded the time.
Bob, I would like you to take over for the interactive session as well.
Yes.
Apologies for going so far.
So, thank you so much, Father, for such a beautiful and knowledgeable presentation. Your presentation has given us the best knowledge on the situation that we are living in and the dangers that we may face in the near future. But it is not just that you have mentioned, and it's not just that you have mentioned the dangers, but You have also mentioned a solution to avoid any of the future dangers for the society and India especially. You have also suggested that the options that we as the members of the Salesian family especially, and how we should reach to the youth. So now, without taking so much of time, I would like to invite anyone who would like to ask any questions on any particular thing that you like to ask from Father Thomas. And those who has any questions, please write it in the chat section. And as I can see, there are quite a few questions already in the chat section. So, and since we don't have so much of time, I think I'll just pick random questions from here. So the first question to Father is, it is said that to educate a child, the whole village is required. African proverb. Father, your presentation brought this proverb in my mind. Now with your ministry among people as Salesian, are you convinced that Salesian communities are creating oasis for the young people for new beginnings in unconventional ways?
I won't be able to give a very authoritative answer to this question, but I know there are communities of Salesians who are really creating oases for young people, at least when the students or the young people are there. The question is, what happens once they are thrown into the wider world where they have to face the harsh realities of life, from where they want to run away? And that's where I think we fail. To invite young people and say, you want to come and stay. When you know that there are young people who face issues, who are struggling, invite them. We're not waiting for them to come. Invite them, come and stay. I think we need to move into that a little more strongly.
Right, so Father,
yes. I would be very happy to answer these questions to people who have answered if I will get the email ID of these people. Or they can email me their questions, I'll answer. Yeah.
We can take another question, Ivor.
Yes, so another question is, most of students from our school and colleges end up as job seekers and migrants. What can Salesians do to make them as job makers? What about Salesians setting up IT companies and production units such as garments in Northeast, so as to make our youth productive in our own? And this question is asked by Brother Felix Joseph from Sacred Heart Theological College, Shillong.
I think it's high time we started creating job makers, job creators within the Northeast. We are trying. We are just setting up what we are calling the Hub Jorhat, specifically for this purpose, to incubate young people with business ideas, with enterprise ideas, not only pure business, but also social enterprises and also NGOs, where they create jobs. As I said, our focus has been on educational empowerment with a focus on making life better through a job. Now, I think
yesterday, Dr. Father Gilbert Chundal holds a PhD degree in faith education and youth ministry from the Salesian Pontifical University, Rome. He was awarded the gold medal for his doctoral dissertation and has been the head of the Department of Faith, Education and Youth Ministry in Bangalore for 6 years now, where students are who are preparing for postgraduate courses are trained in faith education and youth ministry. He has authored several books and scholarly articles and has even produced innovative biblical newspapers and PowerPoint DVDs, Faith Kits for Faith Education. Father also has a creative side to balance the rather serious fears of his mind, and he has a passion for photography, painting, and movies too. He is a highly sought after resource person in teaching teachers to teach. Presently, Father is the director of Nitika Don Bosco, Kolkata, and the editor of the quarterly Catechetics India. Welcome, Father, and over to you.
Thanks. Thanks, Vankivi, for the introduction. And thanks to the organizers for inviting me to this symposium to present this paper. With this introduction, let me begin my paper. At the outset, let me tell you, this paper is actually containing just essentials from the real scientific paper, because I need to give it within half an hour. So I have taken essential statements, codes, essentials, ideas from the entire paper. That's the first thing. My purpose of this presentation is just to provoke you and to propose some ideas to you, and also to receive some proposals from you on the topic, so that I don't boast of this paper as exhaustive, complete on the topic. And I would like to get feedback and responses even after presentation later time, with your ideas and concept to add and make this paper a little more complete. So let me give you a content of my presentation. I'll just introduce the clarification terms which I talk about. That's the first part. Then I will give you reasons for this dimension, that is catechetical or education to faith dimension in our youth ministry in the Salesian setting. Number 3, what's the identity of a Salesian from the point of faith education in the youth ministry setting? Fourth, let us look at the ground reality in the South Asian Salesian provinces. I will present to you some of the findings of this dimension in our youth ministry. Not everything, some areas and some signs of faith formation that are happening, and that could be improved in our youth ministry setting. Number 5, I would also like to place on record some of the stalwarts in our Salesian catechetical contribution in the past from the Salesians in the South Asian region. And 6th one, I would like to conclude with the way forward, some of the proposals which I propose in this youth ministry with a focus on educative or faith educative dimension. And I conclude with a final conclusion. So this is what I'm intending to do. I hope to finish within half an hour. Okay, let me start. Let me begin first of all, the sources where I collected this basically. Basically, I am taking from SDB sources. I know that people who are watching and participating in the symposium are not only SDB priests or brothers. There are FMA, the whole Salesian family, the young people are there, our beneficiaries are youth work. So I have not gone into all the sources of the Salesian family. Basically, STB Constitution, general chapters of the Salesians, and some of the Salesian literature. Secondly, I have consulted Pope Francis writing, especially 2 documents, Evangelii Gaudium and Christus Vivit, which is basically on young people. And finally, since it's connected with the catechesis and education to faith, the latest document, Directory for Catechesis, which was released in the year 2021. So these are the basic sources. Little clarification on the terms. When most of us, when we hear the word catechesis, we limit ourselves to classroom activity. Here I do not mean merely a classroom activity. It is wider than classroom activity. I would put it across as catechesis from the point of faith education, faith formation, faith nurture, faith animation, Christian education, entire transformation, formation of the person in faith, etc. So it is not just class in the classroom connected to catechism classes alone. Number 2, if you really think of what is catechesis, it involves 2 elements, science of education and science of faith. When we combine these 2, science of education, science of faith, we get catechesis. And when I say Salesian youth ministry, because I'm talking about dimension of education to faith in the Salesian youth ministry, which is for me distinct from ICAF, which is of the Jesuits, ICYM, which is of the entire Catholic Church, or Jesus Youth, which is a kind of independent youth forum, or UFRA of Franciscans, or youth retreat centers, in the retreat centers, youth retreat groups. You know, I would like to distance and make it distinct our Salesian youth ministry. So what I am talking about within the Salesian youth ministry setting, what is the role of catechetical dimension? And finally, in all these, whether they are Salesian youth ministry or other youth movements, young people is something very common in all these. Faith, God, and education and formation. So these things are very common in all the youth settings. Now, let me give you to the next topic. What are the reasons behind this dimension in our youth ministry? We know that there are 4 essential dimensions in our Salesian youth ministry, like a vocation dimension, social experience, and one is education to faith. I believe the most important reason is this. In the SDB Constitution, Article 34, remember that this society has its beginning in a simple catechism lesson. And you know the picture of Bartholomew Garelli in the sacristy on 8th December 1841. So we were founded on catechism class. This conjugation came into being with the catechism class. That's a foundation and origin of our conjugation. Reason number 2, preventive system. We already heard about preventive system beautifully from Father Joseph, and where these 3 elements, reason, religion, and loving kindness. Without religion, we cannot have complete preventive system. And it is a way of education of the young. So educating the young, we need these 3, essentially the middle one, religion, which connected to our education to faith. Reason 3, good Christians, honest citizens. We know that this is the aim of our youth ministry. Good Christians and honest citizens. We know that 2020, Strenna was on this topic, good Christians and honest citizens. And the first part, good Christians, is related to our dimension again in the youth ministry, in our aim towards the youth ministry. And Father Peter Bride, one of the historians and author, who says, for Don Bosco, lived religion, not just studying about religion, living the religion, lived religion was the primary aim of authentic education. If education has to be very effective, the religion has to be lived by the young people. So that's the reason number 3. Reason number 4 is give me souls, take away the rest. And you know, this particular motto of Don Bosco was kept out on his door. Dominic Savio, seeing this motto on his door, said, here we do business not with money, but with souls. Some of us may not like the concept souls. That means we are only worried about souls, not the body. It does not mean that. We'll come to that. What do we mean by, and what does Don Bosco mean by souls and take away the rest? And that is the education of faith again. Reason number 5, 2 general chapters that's discussed about this dimension very strong. One, the recent one, and one that went a few years back, 1990, GC 23. GC 23, general chapter 23, the topic was educating young to the faith. And it said, in the beginning, from Salesian mission, we are now moving towards journey of education to faith. This entire education to faith is a kind of journey with the young. And the recent one, GC 28, in the 6-year plan, there are 6 objectives given by Rector Major. And the second objective is education to faith. Remember that. So that's a reason. Now let us go to the third one, Salesian identity. What is our identity? Educative or faith educative identity in our youth ministry. There are several references in our writings and documents. Let me begin with our constitution. Our mission says we are signs and bearers of God's love to the young. We are signs and bearers of God's love to the young. Evangelizers of the young. Article 6 says, and educators of we Salesians are evangelizers of the young. Nowhere it is mentioned we are educators of the young. Remember this. We are not educators of the young. We are educators of faith or evangelizers of the young. So there is an element of faith dimension in every education that we have with the young people. The young are prepared to be the first apostles of the young. So our education of faith towards young people help the young people to be the evangelizers to the young themselves. And that is what Article 35 says. Article 45 says, educating to faith, specific identity of Salesian priest. So essential identity of Salesian priest is catechetical identity. Again, nucleus of Salesian education. Regulation 7 says education to faith and different forms of catechesis. Identity of a Salesian parish, 2 elements. Regulation says youth centers is an essential element in every Salesian parish and systematic catechesis. So youth and catechesis Without this, there is no Salesian parish. And the first purpose of the youth ministry, GC 28, the just concluded general chapter says, the first purpose of youth ministry is the conversion of the young people to the gospel of Jesus Christ. So if this relationship does not happen in our youth ministry is not a Salesian youth ministry. Let's put that. We have few quotations, two quotations from John Vicky in the Acts of General chapter 1994. He speaks about what is this soul we are talking about. Give me souls, take away the rest. And I believe one of the theologian rector majors we have had the last decades, I believe the best theologian rector major is John Vicky. Very profound, very intelligent, and his writings are very, very profound. He says, what do you mean by pedagogy of Don Bosco, which is a pedagogy of the soul, of grace, of supernatural? Once this energy has been activated, that means pedagogy of the soul, the more profitable work of education begins. The remainder, though valid in itself, is preliminary and contributory to this which transcends it. This is the words of John Vicky with regard to give me souls. On the preventive system, he says this. Preventive system, he says this. On the role of religion. When we think of religion, we think of Christian religion or good Christians. When we think good Christians, what about other young people? He says this, religion in preventive system includes spiritual formation, development of a religious sense, and education towards religiosity, relief from existential problems, evangelical formation, knowledge of Jesus Christ, brought to the level of the young. This was his address to the Asian Conference in 1982. So I believe when we say education to faith in youth ministry, please don't limit to classroom activity. And please don't limit to just educating on catechism. It is much, much more than that, wider than that. And Father Peter Brido, the author and historian, he says, first of all, educator and youth workers need to be spiritual persons rather than mere religion practicing people. They need to cultivate spiritual intelligence. I like the phrase, a Salesian, cultivate spiritual intelligence. Just now we heard from the previous speaker, Father Jerry, multiple intelligence, etc. A Salesian should have, apart from the multiple intelligence, spiritual intelligence among young people beyond religions and religious practices. So we are going beyond religions and religious practices, a kind of spiritual intelligence we promote and cultivate with the young people. This is our identity. Now let us look at the ground reality. What is happening with regard to this dimension in our youth ministry? There was a seminar, research seminar, when we celebrated in South Asia, the 100 years of Salesian presence in India. And the seminar was conducted in Christian College, Bangalore. And Father Cyril, who presented the dimension of education to faith, he says, most of our vision and mission of our institutes contain catechetical elements. Then he makes a statement. Does it remain only vision and mission statement? Let's go a little more. Several of our young are beneficiaries of retreats, recollections, liturgical celebrations, spiritual animations or catechesis. So several of our young people have benefited from retreats we have organized, recollections, liturgical celebrations, spiritual animations, and catechesis. So lots are done in this field of dimension of education to faith. Centers of formation for catechists. Now, what about the centers of formation catechists? Now, today, if you look at the centers of formation catechists, most of the catechist training centers belong to Jesuits in India. Tongo or Thorai, or we have several in central India, of Jesuits actually. How many we do have Salesians? Lum Jing Shai in training center in Marbis, which I visited 25 years back. Meghalaya is closed down, no more. I visited 2 years back that center. Pastoral Training Center, Sangai Pro, once upon a time in Manipur, we are all Salesian centers. At the moment, we don't have official systematic training for catechists. Higher education for catechetic training, we have one and only one in South Asia, KGSC Bangalore. And there are many regional centers, several provinces, I would say almost all the provinces. And very prominent ones, Chennai, Dibagam, Calcutta, Nitiga Don Bosco, Pune, where they cater to the entire diocese and region. They do contribute a lot by way of animation, formation, protections, catechetical textbooks, etc. Then, what about our schools? Though our young in our schools and colleges, get plum posts and very good posts in the government and corporate sector, did they become better men and women, good Christians, or God-fearing people? Let's put in the more generic way, and less corrupted. That's a question many people ask. What is the real effect, net effect of our education? Do they really become God-fearing people and better men and women, and less corrupted? So that's a question many people ask. And Father Jose Kutiani Matatil, former provincial of Bangalore province, when he presented a paper in 1983 about our educational sectors and connected to education to faith, he made this statement: apart from fairly regularly moral science classes, prayer services now and then, and recollection once in a way, nothing much is done in Salesian schools to cater to the religious needs of the non-Christian students. Okay, we do not know how much it has changed from 1983 to 2021, but at least many people would say very little has changed from this statement. We did a study of data collection in 2021 in the last month by the SPCSA from the dimension of education to faith. We sent this data collection to collect to all the coordinators in the Salesian provinces, and out of 12 provinces, I was the one who coordinated this data collection. 2 settings we used: education to faith in the school settings and education to faith in the parish setting. We had sent a questionnaire of 7 topics about Catholic students, formation, and catechesis, trainings, the percentage of Catholics and families, etc. And we collected data. 4 provinces sent back the data. Others could not get the entire data. We would hope to get this data collection completed within this month. I was expecting before this presentation of this paper, I could present the entire 12 provinces picture on this issue of dimension of faith education. Anyway, from the 4 provinces which I collected, the data are quite similar. I hope it will be similar in other provinces too. Especially the pandemic that we have gone through in the last 1 year. Education to faith is almost nil, standstill. And we know the reason: education to faith, both in schools and parishes. Very, very little, hardly anything is happening. Catholic students in our schools and colleges, how much of percentage Catholic students are there? Hardly 10 to 15. No schools and colleges I have had any data more than 20%. This is very shocking. It is not because there are no Catholic students at all. I know where there was a study done in Bangalore schools and colleges, all the religious, and Jesuits fare better than this. In Jesuit schools and colleges, Catholics come 50%, not in our Salesian schools. Support staff in our schools, very alarming. See, that is just opposite data or statistics. When our Catholic students and Catholic teachers are less in our education setting, support staff, non-teaching staff, are higher than others, in fact, more than 50%. So non-teaching staff in most of our schools, Catholics are more. That is one finding. Hardly any formation towards parents of our young people or families of our young people in our schools and parish. And we know that General Chapter insists there is no youth ministry without family ministry. So the family is not given much animation in the settings. Formation of Catholic teachers and catechists. In most of our schools, there are occasionally yearly 1-day seminars for teachers. Most of the catechists are not systematically trained. There are trainings or occasional seminars happening. Systematic training of our catechists in our parishes are not happening. Youth groups in almost all parishes. That is one finding I found in this data of all the provinces. In almost all the Salesian parishes, as the Constitution demands, there are youth groups. And youth groups are very active, Salesian youth groups. But there is a flaw. What is that? They do not include all the youth in a parish. Let's say there are 1,000 families. The youth may come to 30, 40, 50, 100. that is not the entire youth of the parish. So we do not have full youth in any of these parishes. We have some youth, very active, but not all the youth. Okay, that is a ground reality. Based on this, some questions I am asking, I don't have answers. Perhaps each of us could answer this, or our institutions of province should answer this. These are some questions. Are our schools Christian when we expel a boy or a girl because of rude behavior? Number two, are our schools Christian when our schools deny admission to students due to their low economic or intellectual status? Number three, are our schools Christian where majority are not Christians? Number four, are our schools Christian when we constantly promote competitions in our education institutes? Number five, are our schools Christian when our focus is on name and fame based on cent-person formula? Number six, are our schools Salesian when religion and being good Christians are not prime motive? I do not mean to say specifically Christian in a multi-religious setting, even a God-fearing people or religious, reverently religious people. Are our schools Salesian as Don Bosco wants us to be? I don't have answers. These are questions to provoke you, and it's a point for reflection for all of us. I conclude this part of ground reality with a quotation from Venerable Archbishop Fulton Sheen. He made a statement this: the history of the world would have been different if Mussolini and Hitler were not thrown out of the Catholic schools and Stalin from seminary as weeds of disgrace. And to give you another matter of fact from this statement, Mussolini was in Salesian school in Italy. Number five, our inspirations from the past. Having all said, everything is not bleak, all is not lost. We have done a quite good amount of catechetical contribution towards the Indian church, South Asian church, even to the Salesian world. And I like to place on record our gratitude and inspiration from the stalwarts of catechetical contributors in this region. I begin with Northeast region, Father Silvanus. He himself said he wants an epitaph to be written on his tomb that he taught. That's what he wanted. The entire life was teaching in his life, either through writing or his way of life and promoting the faith to the culture. Father Silvanus, hats off to him. Father Luciano Colusi, who really promoted and initiated a catechetical leader in the entire nation by instituting the Nidiga Don Bosco, where I am, and also the Krishnagar diocese. A lot he did, in fact. A caliber of his type, contributing to the field of catechesis and also benefited by the entire church in India. We have Monsignor Stephen Ferrato, who founded a congregation, Missionary Sisters of Mary of the Christians, basically for the pastoral and catechetical mission towards the people in Northeast. First indigenous congregation in Northeast India for catechetical purpose. We have Bishop Moro, who even contributed by his writing, brought a catechism book, exactly almost like a catechism of the Catholic Church. And he founded a congregation basically meant for catechetical mission. That congregation was originally known as Catechist Sisters of Mary Immaculate Help of Christians. Now Catechist has disappeared, Help of Christians have disappeared. But I hope that original spirit have not disappeared. And I would like to mention one person from the South, Father Philip Thai. I have seen his contribution in the parishes. Malayalam Christian literature he brought about, and which was available in almost all the parishes for the children and catechism children to read about saints and Christian literature. These are our Salesian stalwarts in catechetical content. It is not complete, but these are few people whom we need to salute. Now let me give you some way forward. The first one, catechetical formation I am proposing. I think all our Salesian constitutions, all the Salesian family constitution insist catechetical formation at initial stage, theory and practice, not just for the STBs, the whole entire Salesian family. This is a must, and we should give proper syllabus and early stages of formation like aspirantate. It is actually another kind of youth ministry, aspirantate and pre-novice. So we need proper catechetical formation. I was reading actually PAL, Project Apostolic Life of Association of Salesian Cooperators, where they have said a very interesting statement. Honest citizens and good Christians, not only the aim of our mission, it is also identity of Salesian cooperator. Every Salesian cooperator need to be good Christians and honest citizens. In order to promote in our youth work, honest citizens and good Christians. So very identity and mission is same actually for Salesian cooperators. Number two, way forward, Salesian youth spirituality. This is something to provoke you. I always believe, and this is my personal reflection too, our SIM, Salesian Youth Ministry Movement, lack proper youth spirituality as Don Bosco wanted. We need to explore and identify and articulate elements that make Salesian youth spiritual. I'll just give an example in our Indian setting. When it comes to formation of young people and mission of young people, Jesus Youth is better, excellent. Even Calcutta, JTM, John Paul Theology Movement of young people. They are the young people who do mission for young people, in fact. And they have beautiful formation programs every month. Jesus Youth, every month, formation is very well managed. Mission. When it comes to our spirituality, where are they? Or when it comes to structure and organization, diocese and ICYM. When it comes to activities, as well as social activities, Jesuits, ICF in the college. When it comes to specific spirituality proper, many young people flock to UFRA, Franciscan Youth Spirituality. And that spirituality is very attractive, and it is very clear and distinct for them, in fact. When it comes to youth retreat, young people run to Porto or Logos in Bangalore, run by Vincentian fathers. We need to identify systematic youth spirituality or Salesian youth spirituality with this unique. I'm not asking to imitate all these other youth groups. We have our own distinct identity, which Don Bosco has given us as a heritage. We need to promote that. And that is our identity. It's not for imitation. I always believe imitation is a limitation. Originality is vitality. And that is our unique contribution of Salesian youth spirituality, which we need to promote. This is one proposal way ahead. And charismatic catechesis in the Salesian youth ministry. This is coming from the recent documents. A directory for catechesis and Pope Francis Evangelii Gaudium. When I say charismatic catechesis is called first announcement. Those of us not familiar with this phrase, it is first proclamation, let's put. First proclamation, not in the first in the order. This proclamation can be done several times, even to people of all ages, even to people who are so-called baptized and Catholics and practicing Catholic. And this has to be done and promoted. And that is one way of getting into touch with our young people in personal relationship and discipleship with Jesus. The centrality of the kerygma calls for stressing those elements which are most needed today. It should be marked by joy and encouragement, liveliness, and harmonious balance, which will not reduce preaching to a few doctrines, which are at times more philosophical than evangelical. So Pope Francis wants, it's not doctrinal evangelization or catechesis. All these demands on the part of the evangelizer, certain attitudes which foster openness to the message, approachability, readiness for dialogue, patience, a warmth and welcome, which is non-judgment. So I think we need this type of education to fail, which touches the heart of young people for a personal relationship with Jesus, which is not just first announcement in the order. It can be done several times. Second, way of beauty. This is a one particular concept of Pope Francis in Evangelii Gaudium, re-quoted and re-emphasized in the recent document, Directory for Catechesis. He says, the way of evangelization is a way of beauty. The way of evangelization is a way of beauty. And every form of beauty is catechesis. Every form of beauty is catechesis. Promote language of faith through beauty. And he mentions use of art in catechesis. Previous speaker spoke about it. Music, icons, new languages of parables, traditional, cultural, and non-conventional expression. The last talk was on non-conventional expressions of young people. That is beauty. It may look little to the evangelizer, but a lot to the young people. Pope himself says, it may not look beautiful to us, but it is beautiful to the young people. So we need to promote. And I believe for us Salesian, this is typical Salesian youth spirituality. A kind of language of beauty, which becomes language of faith and language of catechesis. Fifth proposal, we have several resources. Each province, each Salesian, in fact, has a lot of protections and innovations. Unfortunately, we need to coordinate them and put them together. Perhaps SPCSA, and we have a South Asian web portal where we can put everything together under one umbrella. Probably in the future, we need to have one source and one coordination, networking of all the resources and personnel together. And finally, way forward, I like to present, Pope Francis' words on the new youth ministry he proposes. I would like to stay a little on this new youth ministry Pope Francis proposes in Christus Vivit, which he calls popular youth ministry. I will call this, in addition to well-planned youth ministry that parishes and movements carry out, I propose a popular youth ministry with a different style, schedule, pace, and method. Popular youth ministry is inclusive, not elitist. Popular youth ministry includes young people who distance from the church and need not be Christians. We need only to accompany and encourage them as Jesus on the way to Emmaus. Now, look at our youth ministry groups. Our youth ministry groups and young people are churchy youth. And they are actually goody-goody, yes, father, yes, sister, young people. Have you ventured out? Most of our youth groups are not ventured out, those who don't come to church. I would sometimes say the parable of the lost sheep we need to rewrite today. Today we are quite satisfied with one sheep that is only inside the fold. 99 sheep are outside. We have only 90, 40, 50 or 100 young people in a parish, which are not the correct proportionate rate or correct number of young people. So we are quite satisfied with the one sheep in the fold, 99 outside the fold. That is where popular youth ministry comes, which is what Father Jerry spoke about, unconventional youth ministry. Are our communities youth-friendly communities, open to any young person? Which Don Bosco said, it's enough that you are young. Does not matter your religion, background, age, not age, background, anything. So this is what Pope Francis wanted, looking out and going in search for the lost sheep. Probably we need to promote this youth ministry more in the future, getting out of structured youth ministry and elitistic youth ministry. And finally, I conclude, two quotations, one from John Paul II. Final way, I am proposing this, what the popes have promoted. Do not forget, in the Vita Consecrata, he says to the religious, do not forget that you religious, in a very special way, can and must say that you not only belong to Christ, but you have become Christ. Each one of us is Christ. And that is the only way to become educators of faith to the young people. This is John Paul II's words in Vita Consecrata in 1996. Pope Francis says these words. After the World Youth Day in Krakow, in Poland, one of the youngsters asked Pope Francis this question. He asked this question. He said, He said, what should I say to a university classmate, a friend, a good person, but who is an atheist? What should I tell him in order to change him, to convert him? And you know what he said? The last thing you should do is to say anything. You live your gospel. And if he asks you why you do this, you can explain to him why you do so. Let the Holy Spirit attract him. So it is not preaching that matters. You know, Pope Francis always quotes a quotation of Francis, Saint Francis of Assisi, preach always, if necessary, use words. It is we who live Christ that becomes evangelization for the young people. And that is what is needed to be educators of faith. I conclude with a movie clipping on Jesus movie. One of the Jesus movies that was produced in 1999 by Roger Young. The movie ends with Ascension, scene of Ascension. And in that scene of Ascension, with Ascension scene, Jesus disappears from the image. The next scene, we thought it was over. Movie was not over. They show a present street today after 2000 years of Jesus. And the man who acted as Jesus comes back to the scene, not with a costume of Jesus, long hair and long gown. He comes with just pants and shirt. And he walks on the streets and footpath and continues the mission of Jesus. This is a very strong message to the viewers. To tell the young viewers, now Jesus stopped acting. Now he started living. Go and do the same. This is a message I would like to conclude with for all of us when we think of education to faith in the youth ministry, where John Paul II and Pope Francis has said, we are Jesus today. Where we are not the center of youth ministry, we go in search of young wherever they are found. From theory to practice. And finally, from persons to persona Christi. And we need to stop talking somewhere and become the walk of the talk. So let me stop talking and let us all walk the talk that is becoming Jesus. That's all, folks. Let us walk the way together with our young people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Father. I am so moved by the video that you have just projected just now. It's truly inspiring to hear from someone who's so dedicated to his work. And I appreciate that you've mentioned going beyond the classroom, especially when you're educating on faith and rather faith education. And this is very much in harmony, like you've mentioned throughout the presentation, in harmony with Father Jerry's presentation, talking about unconventional spaces and settings. If anything, going out of the classroom is the first step to unconventional evangelism. Another thing that I truly appreciate, sorry for taking too much of your time, I was so drawn to this presentation, but I was captivated by the phrase spiritual intelligence, which I think is very important for the development of our Christian minds. I won't dwell too much. Father has already spoken enough and very systematically. Thank you so much, Father. We will move quickly into the questions now. I have a question here that says, thank you very much, Father Gilbert. A daringly clear and refreshingly provocative presentation. Why did you speak of Salesians ourselves being good Christians and honest citizens? Is it like the evangelizer needing first to be evangelized?
Once more, could you read that question again?
Yes, Father. Why do you speak of Salesians being good Christians and honest citizens? Is it like the evangelizer needing first to be evangelized, himself or herself?
Okay, that is one of our aims of our youth ministry, good Christians and honest citizens. It was there from the time of Don Bosco. It was the strenna, those of us in the Salesian family would know. It was a strenna of 2020. What does it mean for us in our pluralistic religious setting of India? How do you form our young people to good Christians? So that is where I quoted Father Vecchi's statement. It is to be a spiritual intelligence Salesians, spiritual intelligence to develop in us, and also to develop a kind of God-fearing religious, people who have some kind of reverence and love and devotion to God and faith. So that is basically Indian, in fact. We all in India have a religious background. We are not born into an atheistic family. We are all born in a religious family. So this background is already there. So that good Christians doesn't mean basically Christian specific, but have a personal relationship with God, and that to be brought up in our education system. There we become evangelized. So we educate by evangelizing and evangelize by educating. That's the purpose of our Salesian.
It's a full circle. All right, Father, one more question. We need to accompany the youth who are in the peripheries. What would you propose to the Salesian family to do today?
That is actually the concept of Pope Francis. Pope Francis always wanted that church has to go to the periphery. One reason is We are quite comfortable in our comfort zone of our institutionalized setup. So the shepherds going after lost sheep, again, the popular youth ministry, unconventional setting will come there. So when we move out of our center, going to the periphery, we will find our young people, the sheep that are wounded, lost. And that is actually the church, actually. Pope Francis would call that is a real church. He would call it as a field hospital. That's a term, phrase he uses. It's a kind of war zone where people are wounded, and we take care of the sheep that are wounded. And that's where he brings the idea of smell of the sheep again. Periphery. Periphery is a place where we find young people lost and the least and the last day. Whereas in our parish setting, we get our youth groups. They are identified and we can have them. They are good, but beyond that, we are not having gone much. So I don't have solution how to go beyond this youth groups and to search of those who don't come to church, in search of young people who never attend our settings or visitors. So one way I would suggest, as Father Jerry said, make our communities Salesians, youth-friendly Salesians and youth-friendly communities, and open, warm communities. Any youngster is welcome to our community. You know, they can just enter into our communities. It is their home. And every Salesian should feel at ease and at home with any youngster, no matter what religion, what background, and what culture, what economical background. I think that's the first step. For me, that is the first step.
Thank you, Father. Father Joby, do we have time for another question? I think I'll just quickly take one more question. That's it's a very nice question. Father, in your position, can you suggest 2 core points for the Salesian youth spirituality?
Spiritual, I am not a spirituality expert person, but I believe as Don Bosco designed this youth ministry, good Christians, honest, and give me souls, take away rest, reason, religion, loving, and where religion comes in. They are all based on one element, which is specifically sacraments, Eucharist and confession. They are very important. Just recently we promoted or we celebrated the feast of Saint John Mary Vianney, a man who lived his preaching life, you know, spending time 18 hours in the confession. That is typical Salesian. No? So many young people we could have. Pope Francis said if you could get time, he would sit at the confession. That is one ministry. Beautiful ministry where we can reach out to young people, and beautiful ministry we can do. That's one area I believe typical Salesian. Sacraments, Eucharist and confession, both go together. In fact. Another area which Pope Francis also recommended, accompaniment, personal presence, or what we call in our typical Salesian words, assistance. It is not limited to few brothers who will look after the youth groups. Every Salesian is an assistant. So that is typical of our spirituality, being present, and we call that one in the general chapter, sacrament of presence. Preventive system is a sacrament of presence, being present where the young people are from. That is typical, which we may not find in other youth movements, probably. You know, we are present and we are with the young. I believe these two are very important Salesian matters. Okay.
Thank you very much, Father. We will have to bring this to a close. If only the circumstances aren't as they are, we would have gathered in a room for tea and talk. Nonetheless, virtual rooms are there, my dear friends, who are all joined in this gathering today. The email addresses of both resource persons will be projected on the screen. I believe that will happen in a few moments' time. So before we end today, I would like to remind all attendees that there will be a feedback form on the last day of the symposium, that is on the 8th on Sunday. Please analyze these sessions properly and fill that up with all the honesty that you have in you. You will also receive an e-certificate of participation, which will be sent to your email address. We are at the end once again, and before we all head out, I would like to thank the panel members for the encouraging presence and the resource persons for the presentations that cannot be paralleled in any other way. I would like to extend my gratitude to Father Paul O'Lincott, the provincial Vice Provincial Father John Zosiyama for their continuous support and encouragement, Father A.L. Jose, the Program Director, Father Anthony Karkongo, the Youth Delegate, for also being very supportive and also always being by our side, Mr. Royaldeen Shadup, the Youth Coordinator, Mr. Ivor Shabong for moderating the first section today, and also a special thanks to St. Anthony's College for the setup and the Zoom meeting, and also for live streaming on YouTube. Thank you so much, Sir Nathaniel, for your patience. Last but not least, I would also like to extend my gratitude to the SYM team for taking much of the work behind the scenes that is perhaps forgotten sometimes, but is very much indispensable. That is all for today, everyone. Thank you once again, and good night.